It's Goldman Diaries. I cheated on my husband while he stood 20 feet away, laughing with his friends. And the worst part? I didn't even hesitate. It happened so fast, it barely felt real. One glance. One reckless, electric glance across the crowded backyard, and everything inside me snapped. David was leaning against the bar, dark jeans, white t-shirt, a beer bottle dangling from his fingers. He looked at me like he knew exactly who I was under all the layers. The good wife, the perfect mom, the reliable one, and didn't give a damn. I should have looked away. I didn't. He smirked. Crooked. Dangerous. And in 3 strides, he was standing in front of me. "Hey," he said, voice low, like a secret only I was meant to hear. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but before the words could form, his hand brushed mine. Just a brush, a breath, but it was enough to shatter the life I thought I wanted. Behind me, I could hear James's voice, loud and easy, talking about his golf game, his promotion, our perfect little family. He had no idea I was already slipping away. I should have moved. I should have laughed it off. Instead, I leaned in. I let myself fall. David didn't kiss me then. He didn't need to. The air between us buzzed like a live wire. My skin burned just standing that close to him. "You don't have to stay stuck, Sophie," he said, so soft I almost thought I imagined it. I blinked. How did he know my name? He tipped his head toward the side gate, toward the dark, toward everything I wasn't supposed to want. I froze, every nerve screaming. This was insane. This was wrong. And yet, I didn't feel trapped. I felt free. I set my wineglass down on the table, slow, deliberate. My hand was steady. And then I followed him. I didn't even look back. We didn't go far, just past the fence line, hidden by the trees. The bass from the party thumped like a distant heartbeat. David turned. Waited. The night smelled like grass and sweat and danger. I reached for him first. When our mouths crashed together, it wasn't soft or slow. It was desperate. It was inevitable. I tasted my own betrayal on his lips. For a moment, I forgot who I was. Forgot who I was supposed to be. Forgot everything but the rush pounding in my blood. When I pulled back, gasping, he just smiled at me, slow and sure, like he'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. "You don't belong there," he said. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted to say I loved my husband, my kids, my life. But the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I knew they weren't true. I didn't belong there anymore. Maybe I never had. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, heart slamming against my ribs. I had crossed a line. There was no going back now. I slipped back into the party, smoothing my hair, fixing my smile. James caught sight of me, lifted his beer, and grinned like nothing had changed. Maybe it hadn't. Not yet. But something inside me had cracked wide open. And it was only a matter of time before everything else broke too. I thought I could bury what happened that night. But when the first anonymous message hit my phone the next morning, I realized someone else had seen everything. And they weren't going to stay quiet. The first text hit my phone before I even had a chance to brush my teeth. "I saw what you did." No name. No number. Just 5 words that punched the air out of my lungs. I stood frozen in the bathroom, toothbrush hanging limp from my fingers. James was downstairs making coffee, the clink of mugs and casual hum of morning life filling the house like everything was normal. Like my world hadn't just tilted sideways. I stared at the screen, willing the message to disappear. It didn't. It stayed, like a loaded gun pointed at my life. I deleted it without thinking, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it wasn't meant for me. But deep down I knew. Someone had seen. Someone knew. I forced myself to smile through breakfast, to pack the kids' lunches, to kiss James on the cheek like nothing was wrong. But every second felt like I was walking across thin ice, waiting for the crack to echo. I should have pulled back. I should have cut things off with David right then and there. Instead, I found myself texting him. "I need to see you." He answered within minutes. "Tonight." And just like that, I was spiraling deeper. That evening, I told James the first had a work meeting. He barely looked up from his laptop. "Sure, babe. Be safe." I drove across town, every mile another nail in the coffin I was building for myself. David was already waiting when I got there. A small, out-of-the-way bar where no one would recognize us. His smile when he saw me was a slow, warm thing, pulling me in like gravity. He ordered us drinks without asking. He knew me that well already. We talked, or rather, he talked, and I listened, soaking in every word like a woman dying of thirst. He made me feel like I mattered, like I was still young, desired, alive. When he touched my hand across the table, I didn't pull away. I leaned in. The memory of the message gnawed at the back of my mind, but here, in this moment, it felt far away, like a bad dream I could outrun. "You don't have to pretend with me," David said, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "You don't have to be someone else." I closed my eyes for a second, letting the words sink in. How long had it been since anyone had seen me, really seen me, without the title of wife, mother, caretaker stitched across my skin? I wanted to stay in that feeling forever. But reality doesn't wait. My phone buzzed again. I yanked it out of my bag, heart hammering. Another message. This one was worse. "Leave him, or I will tell." I dropped the phone onto the table like it burned. David's brows pulled together. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. Nodded. Lied. But inside, my mind was spinning. Who was doing this? What did they want? And how much did they know? The night ended with another kiss in the parking lot, hidden in the shadows between two cars. It was reckless. It was selfish. It was everything I had been craving. I drove home with the windows down, hoping the cold air would drown out the guilt clawing at my chest. James was still awake when I got back, sitting in the living room with a beer, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up, smiled. "Meeting run late?" I nodded, too fast. "Yeah, sorry." He didn't press. He never pressed. And that should have made me feel safe. But it didn't. It made me feel invisible. I showered, crawled into bed next to him, pretended to sleep. But all night, my phone sat on the nightstand like a ticking bomb. One message away from detonating everything. One secret away from tearing my life apart. I thought I could bury what happened. I thought I could control it. But when a printed photo of me and David slipped into my mailbox the next morning, no note, no explanation, just cold, hard proof, I realized whoever was behind this wasn't bluffing. And they weren't going to stop. If I didn't end it, now, they would destroy everything. But the more I tried to pull away from David, the tighter he pulled me in. And walking away wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. I should have stayed away. I told myself that 100 times as I drove to meet David in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, lying to James, lying to myself. Just one more time. Just one more secret. The second I slipped into David's car, everything sensible inside me evaporated. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. We drove, no destination, no plan, just the two of us sealed in a bubble of recklessness. Every mile stretched tighter across my chest until I couldn't breathe. Until I didn't want to. He pulled off onto a secluded road lined with trees, the world outside dissolving into nothing but shadow and risk. When he parked, the silence between us crackled. David turned toward me, his gaze burning straight through every excuse I had left. I should have opened the door. I should have walked away. Instead, I leaned in. He caught my face in his hands like he couldn't stand another second of distance, and then he kissed me. Not tentative. Not gentle. Hungry. Certain. I fell into him like I was starving, like I had been waiting for this long before I ever knew him. The kiss didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. My hands fisted in his t-shirt, dragging him closer, erasing the thin line between desire and devastation. I wasn't thinking about James, or the kids, or the person I was supposed to be. I was thinking about the way David's hands gripped my waist, the way his mouth moved over mine like I was the only thing keeping him alive. When we finally broke apart, breathing hard, my heart thundered in my ears. David rested his forehead against mine. "You feel it too," he whispered. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to scream that this wasn't me. But it was. I had crossed a line. And now I was running headlong into the fire. He kissed me again, slower this time, like he was memorizing me. Every touch dug deeper under my skin. Every stolen breath tethered me tighter to him. I was losing myself. And the terrifying part was, I didn't care. We sat there for what felt like hours, tangled together, reckless and invincible. Reality didn't crash back in until my phone buzzed. I stiffened, pulling away. James's name lit up the screen. A simple text. "Where are you?" My stomach dropped. I mumbled something about needing to get home, about being late, about things I couldn't even hear over the roar in my head. David didn't try to stop me. He just watched, his eyes dark, knowing. Like he already understood that no matter how fast I ran, a piece of me would always stay with him. I drove home on autopilot, replaying every touch, every word, every choice I couldn't undo. James met me at the door, casual, smiling. "How was the store?" I nodded, forcing a laugh. "Fine. Took longer than I thought." He kissed the top of my head and turned back toward the kitchen. And just like that, the lie slid into place like it had always been there. But later that night, lying awake next to James, staring into the dark, I knew the truth. The kiss at the party might have been reckless. But this, today, in the car, this was deliberate. I wasn't slipping anymore. I was choosing it. And once you start choosing the lie over the life you built, there's no going back, only deeper into the abyss. And when David showed up at my kid's soccer game the next day, standing in plain sight like he belonged there, I realized I hadn't just crossed a line. I had dragged my whole life into the fire with me. I felt it the second I walked through the front door. James was different. He was sitting at the kitchen counter, a beer bottle sweating in his hand, just watching me. Not smiling, not speaking, just watching. The kind of look that peeled back skin. I froze for half a heartbeat, clutching my purse a little too tight. "Hey," I said, forcing a casual laugh. Traffic was a nightmare. His eyes didn't move from mine. "Sure," he said slowly. "Traffic." I dumped my bag on the table, pretending I didn't hear the sharpness in his voice, pretending my heart wasn't slamming against my ribs. The silence stretched until it snapped. "You've been busy lately," James said, voice too even. I shrugged, smiling too big. "You know how it is. Work, errands, life, lie, lie, lie." His gaze narrowed, slicing through every word. The walls felt too small, the air too thick. I retreated upstairs under the excuse of changing out of my clothes, my hands shaking as I closed the bedroom door behind me. My phone buzzed the second I was alone. "David, miss you already." I almost dropped it. Panic prickled under my skin. I deleted the message, but it didn't matter. The guilt was written all over me. I caught my reflection in the mirror, hair messy, face flushed, eyes wide and wild like a cornered animal. James wasn't stupid. He was careful, observant. And now, he was watching me the way you watch something you already know is broken, waiting to see how it shatters. I fumbled through getting changed, my mind racing. I needed to be normal. I needed to be better at this. Dinner was a blur. The kids chattered. James cracked jokes. I smiled at all the right moments, laughed a second too late. Every time my phone buzzed in my pocket, I felt like the floor would give out beneath me. Later, after the kids went to bed, James stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed. "You've been different lately," he said. I froze with my toothbrush halfway to my mouth. "Different how?" I managed, voice too light. He shrugged, stepping into the room. "Distant. Jumpy." I forced a laugh. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" He didn't say it out loud, but he didn't have to. The weight of what he didn't say hung between us, thicker than any accusation. I climbed into bed, pretending I didn't notice when he stayed standing there, watching me like he was trying to read my mind. I lay stiff under the covers, my heart hammering against the silence. James turned off the light and got into bed beside me. The mattress barely shifted. We used to curl into each other at night. Now, it felt like a chasm yawned open between us. I closed my eyes, willing sleep to come, willing my hands to stop shaking, willing my brain to stop screaming. But the images wouldn't stop. David's smile, the touch of his hand, the way James's eyes had narrowed just a little too long tonight. I couldn't tell if I was imagining things, or if the noose was already tightening around my neck. I turned onto my side, facing away from James, biting my lip until it bled. I couldn't shake the feeling that James knew. And the longer I kept the secret, the more desperate I became to hide the truth. But secrets have a way of leaking through the cracks. And when James suggested a spontaneous family trip to the cabin that weekend, my blood ran cold. Because if he knew, he was about to trap me somewhere I couldn't run. The cabin was supposed to be our escape. James said it so easily, smiling over breakfast like he wasn't planning something. We need a weekend away. Just us. The kids. No work. No distractions. My stomach twisted, but I forced a nod. It was the kind of thing he used to say when we were happy. It sounded almost normal, but I knew better now. James didn't do anything without a reason anymore. Still, what choice did I have? Say no and look suspicious? Say yes and pray I could hold it together? By Friday afternoon, we were packed into the SUV, winding our way through the mountains. James whistled along to the radio. The kids argued over snacks. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, feeling like I was being driven to my own execution. When we pulled up to the cabin, everything looked exactly the same. The creaky wooden porch, the chipped blue paint on the door, the old swing that groaned in the breeze. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and pine. James set down the bags, smiling like this was just another family trip. I moved through the rooms, heart pounding, every step heavier than the last. Nothing looked different. Nothing felt different. And yet, something was wrong. That night, after dinner, James built a fire in the fireplace. The kids fell asleep curled up on the couch. I sat stiffly in the armchair, pretending to read, pretending not to notice the way James kept glancing at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Finally, he stretched, yawning. "I'm beat," he said. "Coming to bed?" I nodded, setting the book down with hands that didn't feel like mine. Upstairs, while he showered, I changed into pajamas, moving on autopilot. When I bent down to plug in my phone, something caught my eye. A small black object tucked behind the nightstand. Tiny, almost invisible. My blood ran cold. A camera. A hidden camera. I jerked back so fast I nearly tripped over myself. My mind raced. Was it new? Had it always been there? Who placed it? James? No. I didn't want to believe it. But I knew. James had installed it. And if there was one camera, there could be more. I stumbled into the bathroom, heart slamming against my ribs. James stood at the sink, brushing his teeth, casual as ever. He caught my eye in the mirror and smiled, a slow, careful smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You okay?" he asked. I swallowed the scream clawing up my throat and nodded. "Yeah, just tired." Lie. Another lie stacked on a mountain of them. I crawled into bed beside him, pulling the covers up to my chin, muscles rigid with fear. He turned off the light, rolled onto his side. Within minutes, his breathing deepened, feigning sleep. I lay there in the dark, my mind spinning. The cabin was supposed to be my safe place, the one place I could breathe. Now, it was a trap. And James wasn't just suspicious anymore. He was hunting. Every word I said, every move I made, every look, every text, all of it could be recorded. I thought I was keeping my secret safe. But now James was watching, and everything I'd been trying to protect was about to come crashing down. And when I heard James's voice the next morning, low, deliberate, telling the kids to stay outside for a bit, because Mom and I need to talk, I knew. The reckoning wasn't coming later. It was coming now. "Sit down, Sophie." James's voice was so calm it scared me more than if he had screamed. The kids were outside, kicking a soccer ball across the muddy lawn, their laughter faint through the open window. Inside, the cabin felt like a tomb. I hovered by the fireplace, arms crossed tight across my chest. James sat at the table, a small black flash drive spinning slowly between his fingers. "Sit," he repeated, quieter. I sat. He slid the flash drive across the table toward me. I didn't move. "You want to guess what's on it?" he asked. My mouth went dry. My hands curled into fists under the table. James tapped the flash drive once, a sharp little sound that made me jump. "So I installed a camera," he said, his voice even. "Not to catch you in bed with him. I knew you were smarter than that." He leaned in slightly, voice low and deliberate. "I didn't need to see everything to know what you were hiding." His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. "I watched you panic every time your phone buzzed. I watched you whisper into your phone when you thought no one was listening. I watched you choose him, over and over again, even here." The room spun. He didn't catch the betrayal with bodies. He caught the betrayal in my heart. Silence. The only sound was the ticking of the ancient wall clock. James's eyes never left mine. "I told myself it was nothing," he said. "That you were stressed, distracted, tired." His voice never rose. It didn't need to. But then it got harder to ignore. The late nights, the sudden errands, the way you flinched when I walked into the room. He stood up slowly, pushing the chair back with a screech that scraped down my spine. James crossed the room, stopping a few feet from me. I loved you, he said quietly. I built a life with you. A family. He shook his head, almost like he was mourning. And you threw it away for what? Excitement? Attention? Tears burned behind my eyes, but I didn't dare let them fall. Not now. He wasn't looking for tears. He wasn't looking for explanations. He was looking at the wreckage of what we used to be. And he hated me for it. I'm not going to scream, James said. I'm not going to beg you to stay. He paused. But I am going to take everything you care about. The words hit harder than any slap. He didn't have to yell. He didn't have to raise his hand. The promise in his voice was enough. I opened my mouth again, to plead, to explain. I don't even know, but James stepped back. Don't bother, he said, voice sharp as broken glass. He turned and walked out the front door, leaving it swinging open behind him. I sat frozen at the table, staring at the flash drive like it was a live grenade. Outside, the kids' laughter carried on, oblivious. But inside, everything was crumbling. I couldn't run anymore. The truth was out there. And now James wasn't just my husband. He was the man who would destroy me. And when I saw the legal envelope stuffed under the cabin door later that night, my name scrawled across it in cold, angry ink, I knew he wasn't waiting for later. The war had already begun. The legal envelope sat on the kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. I didn't dare touch it. I barely dared to breathe near it. James acted like it wasn't even there. He made pancakes for the kids. He fixed the leaky faucet. He raked the yard. All while that envelope sat between us, silent, heavy, waiting. I knew better than to ask. He wanted me to squirm. And it was working. Every glance, every casual brush past me in the hallway felt loaded. Every word was a landmine I couldn't see until it exploded. At dinner, James poured me a glass of wine, unprompted. He smiled. He asked me about my day. I stared at him across the table, heart hammering. This wasn't forgiveness. It was strategy. He wasn't angry anymore. He was calculating. And worse, he was enjoying it. Later, when the kids were asleep, James sat across from me in the living room, flipping casually through a stack of papers. I spoke to a lawyer today, he said, voice light, conversational. As of now, everything's still in my hands. But things can change. Fast. I said nothing. There was nothing I could say. He kept flipping pages, like he was talking about the weather. Divorce gets messy when one party is proven unfaithful, he mused. Judges don't like that, especially when kids are involved. I clenched my hands in my lap, nails digging into my palms. He was laying it out piece by piece, reminding me exactly how much power he held now, and how little I had. James looked up, smiling politely. But hey, he said, I'm reasonable. My throat closed. I knew what was coming. If you cooperate, he said softly. If you make this easy for me, maybe I won't bury you. The words sliced through the room like a blade. I gripped the edge of the couch, dizzy. He wasn't going to fight me. He was going to break me, piece by piece, quietly, effortlessly, and he was going to make me thank him for it. I stumbled through the rest of the night in a fog, pretending for the kids, pretending for myself. But when I crawled into bed hours later, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, mind racing. David's texts buzzed through my phone, sweet, reckless promises of escape, of starting over. But they felt distant now, weightless. Because David couldn't fix this. No one could. I was trapped between the life I had betrayed and the life I had foolishly dreamed about, and now both were slipping away. James wasn't just angry. He was setting a trap, and I was walking right into it, knowing I had no way out. And when I opened my banking app that night and saw our joint account emptied down to the last cent, James's final move, I realized he wasn't just punishing me. He was making sure I had no way to survive without him. The bank app blinked up at me, mocking. Balance, $0. Gone. Everything. I sat there, frozen, the phone slipping from my fingers onto the bed. James had emptied the account. Without a word. Without a fight. He hadn't just trapped me. He had stripped me bare. The kids' laughter floated up from the backyard, cutting straight through the fog in my head. I stumbled to the window, watching them chase each other across the grass like nothing had changed, like their whole world wasn't seconds from crumbling. Panic clawed up my throat. No money, no lawyer, no safety net. Exactly how James wanted it. I grabbed my phone again, my fingers moving without thinking. David. He would help me. He had to. I fired off a desperate text. I need you. Please call me. Minutes passed. Nothing. I called. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. Finally, a message popped up, short, clipped, cold. Busy. Can't talk. That wasn't the David I knew. My chest tightened. I texted again. Please. It's serious. 3 dots flickered, then disappeared. No reply. I sat there, staring at the screen, willing it to light up again. It didn't. Hours dragged by. Finally, close to midnight, my phone buzzed. David, I'm sorry, sophomore. This is too much. I didn't sign up for all this drama. Hope you figure it out. That was it. No fight. No promises. No rescue. Just an ending. The man I had risked everything for was gone. I dropped the phone onto the nightstand like it was poison. The world felt crushingly small. The house too quiet. My own breathing too loud. I pressed my fists against my temples, willing the tears to stay down. David wasn't the savior I'd hoped for. He was a fantasy, and I had destroyed my reality chasing him. I thought walking away from James would mean freedom. I thought running to David would mean safety. I was wrong on both counts. And now, I had to decide. Fight for what little I had left, or lose everything. The kids. The home. Whatever piece of myself hadn't already been torn to shreds. I wiped my face with shaking hands. There was no one coming to save me. No more illusions. No more fantasies. It was just me. Me, and the war I had started. I thought my choice had been made months ago, that night at the party. But standing there now, staring into the dark, I realized. The real choice was still ahead. And this time, if I got it wrong, I wouldn't be the only one paying the price. Because when James handed me a custody agreement the next morning, one that gave me 1 weekend a month with my own children, I realized the fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about saving what was left of my soul. I tore the custody agreement in half right in front of him. The paper shredded under my shaking hands, fluttering to the floor like dead leaves. James didn't flinch. He just smiled. That cold, patient smile that told me he had already planned 10 moves ahead. You can rip up the paper, Sophie, he said, voice almost kind. It doesn't change a thing. The kid's footsteps thudded overhead, a brutal reminder of what was at stake. I gritted my teeth, forcing the words out. You're not taking them from me. James leaned back in his chair, calm as ever. Who's going to stop me? The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Certainly not David. I had tried calling him again that morning, desperate, humiliated. Straight to voicemail. No call back. No message. David had disappeared like smoke, leaving me to choke on the ashes. I was alone. Exactly the way James wanted me. But not broken. Not yet. I pushed back from the table, fist clenched. I'm fighting this, I said, my voice raw. James chuckled under his breath, standing slowly. You can try. He walked past me, casual, whistling under his breath as he scooped up the torn custody papers. Just remember, he said, pausing at the door, every fight leaves scars. He left me standing there, shaking, staring at the empty space he left behind. That night, my parents came over. James invited them. I didn't even get a say. They sat stiffly on the couch, exchanging tight smiles and worried glances while James played the gracious host, pouring coffee and pretending everything was civilized. When he finally dropped the bomb, telling them about the divorce, about the trouble I'd caused, I watched the light drain from my mother's face. My father's hands tightened around his coffee cup, knuckles white. They didn't look at me. They didn't ask for my side. They just listened, nodded, accepted, and the final thread snapped inside me. I stood up so fast the chair toppled backward. This isn't who I am. I choked out. Silence. James smiled into his cup. My mother smoothed her skirt, avoiding my eyes. My father cleared his throat, the disappointment radiating off him in waves. And I realized I had already been tried and convicted in their eyes. No defense. No mercy. No hope. I stumbled out the back door, into the freezing night, gasping for air. Everything I had fought for, the family, the love, the future, was slipping through my fingers like sand. And there was no one left to catch me. Not James. Not David. Not even my own parents. I thought I could handle it all. I thought I could control the damage. But now, everything was falling apart. And the only thing left to do was face the consequences of my choices head on. Because when James's lawyer served me official court papers the next morning, demanding full custody with supervised visitation only, I realized the final battle wasn't coming someday. It was happening now, and if I didn't fight with everything I had left, I was going to lose everything. I walked into the courtroom alone. No lawyer at my side. No hand to hold. Just me, raw, stripped down, standing on what was left of the life I had burned. James was already there, sitting with his attorney. Polished. Confident. A man who knew he was about to win. He didn't look at me. Not once. The hearing was brutal. James's lawyer laid everything out. The affair, the emotional instability, the financial recklessness. Page after page of evidence, texts, call logs, financial withdrawals, paraded in front of the judge like a funeral procession. And I just sat there, silent, listening to the death sentence of the life I thought I could salvage. When it was my turn to speak, my voice barely made it past my lips. I didn't deny the affair. I didn't make excuses. I told the truth. For the first time in a long time. I made mistakes, I said, voice shaking. But I love my children. I always have. And I will fight for them for the rest of my life. There was no applause. No miracle. Just the heavy, crushing silence of a courtroom where your future is decided without fanfare. When it was over, the judge's words rang in my ears like gunshots. Primary custody to James. Supervised visitation for me. 2 weekends a month. Under supervision. It felt like my lungs collapsed inside my chest. James didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just gathered his papers, shook his lawyer's hand, and walked out, leaving me alone with the consequences of everything I had done. Outside the courthouse, the sky was gray, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't throw off. I sat on the cold concrete steps, clutching my coat around me like armor that no longer fit. David hadn't shown up. Not that I expected him to. His last text had been weeks ago, a brief, awkward goodbye that felt more like a confirmation of what I already knew. I had lost him. I had lost James. I had lost my children. I had lost the version of myself I once thought was unbreakable. I didn't just lose my family. I lost myself. And now, sitting there, staring at the empty street, I realized. Maybe losing it all was the only way I could finally start over. Not with David. Not with James. Not with anyone else's version of who I was supposed to be. Just me. The broken, bruised, painfully awake version of me. The one who would have to figure out, from the ashes, if there was anything left worth saving. Sophie thought she could control her secret, but secrets have a way of breaking free. Have you ever kept something hidden, thinking you could outrun the truth? Write your story in the comments. Subscribe, more untold stories are on the way.